yourself more liberal, moderate, conservative, or would you rather not say?
I'd probably say I'm somewhere between moderate and liberal.
All right. Do you think the media covers the presidential election in an unbiased or biased way?
I would say that every media outlet has its particular bias, depending on which newscast you actually watch. You're going to get a slanted view regardless.
Do you feel like the media tends to lean either liberal or conservative, one way or the other?
Again, I'd say, depending on which news source you get, MSNBC versus Fox, you're going to get different opinions or perspectives.
Do you believe it's fair?
I would say it's fair. Each one has its target audience.
Is there one question you would like to ask the panel? We're doing a TV show on Monday. Is there a question you would like to ask them?
Not that I can think of. I would probably ask them, in a sense, what they would want, what changes they believe need to be made to fix the economy.
Okay, in this segment of our program, we're trying to analyze the idea of objective journalism from both a scholarly and an academic angle. Sal Lottardo is the Dean of the College of Humanities, Social Sciences, and Arts, and he will help us with the scholarly side, and journalism instructor and the advisor to the East Texan student newspaper, Fred Stewart, will help us with the academic and the teaching side. Sal, we can start by letting you give us an overall feeling about how researchers look at this idea of objectivity in terms of human communication.
Well, I'm a linguist, and it's a tough thing. Within linguistics, objectivity is basically assumed to be essentially impossible. The idea is that even when you choose the words that you're going to use, the choice of words, and I'm not even talking about the choice of construction, that is just the choice of words that you use, already is going to bias what you're going to say in a certain direction or another. Just think of, for example, whether you're going to refer to somebody as a terrorist or as a freedom fighter. Okay? Already there is an entire agenda that's built in the choice to call somebody a terrorist or a freedom fighter. And I know this is a disturbing thought for many of our audience, I assume, but essentially a terrorist is a freedom fighter that you disagree with, and vice versa. And these are not pleasant thoughts to think. So within linguistics, this is assumed to be a given. Then you get into slightly more complicated things. For example, if you're going to choose a passive construction or an active construction in order to report what happened. Okay? So if you say something like, police arrests 20 demonstrators, that's an active sentence, and that conveys the agency is in the hands of the police. But if you say demonstrators arrested by police, now you're putting the agency in the hands of the demonstrators. Right? And these are radically different ways of presenting the same objective concept, but you're presenting them in a different linguistic envelope. And this effect, which one you choose is going to affect your objectivity, quote unquote.
And Fred, having been involved in journalism myself almost all of my life and taught journalism as well, I hear some things that Sal is saying there that relate to how you teach reporting and writing.
Right.
So what were your thoughts based on what Sal was discussing?
Well, no, he's exactly right. Objectivity, I think, is in some cases in the eye of the beholder. For a journalist, and what we teach our student reporters is to cover a story, look at different angles, and to talk to as many people involved, whether they are directly involved, indirectly involved, observing it, have knowledge about it, have opinions about it, so that when the story comes out, the readers can look at it and almost feel like they were there at the event, seeing and experiencing and hearing all the discussions and topics that were going on. And so sometimes that's difficult to do, because sometimes I think probably on the national level that sometimes the objectivity is not what we assume it is. It's what the news media wants it to be. What's objective to you may not be objective to me. And we can present a story in different ways to get the objectivity across and get the point across as to how we want it to go across.
I have found in reporting in print and in broadcast that most people who receive a story who read a story, who hear a story, who are not involved in the media, most people hear a story from their own point of view and really think that is the only point of view. And so they are almost certain to feel that the story that they hear is biased, is not objective, because it did not match their own point of view. And I don't know how many times I've had someone say something like that to me, and you know, it's just the thing is that there is more than your own point of view. But that's a hard thing for a lot of people, understandably so, to understand.
Right, I think that's why we hear some of the comments from individuals. They say, well, what do you think about the media? Which media is most objective or most biased? And if so many times we hear people who are conservatives, they think that the so-called liberal media is too biased, and the so-called liberals think the conservative media is too biased. From the media standpoint, I've known journalists who say, well, if both sides are saying that we're biased, then we must be doing something right,
Yeah.
because we're staying more down the middle.
Yeah.
So in a way, the media is sometimes in a no-win situation. It's going to have to present the information as best they can, as fair as they can, and as thoroughly as they can, and let the readers make up their mind.
Okay, let's hear another one of our reports from the streets of Commerce, or the campus of A&M Commerce University, A&M Commerce, our campus here, and see what some folks have to say about journalism and objectivity in journalism.
Chris Manguel here with the Objective Journalism Initiative, and we're here with Texas A&M Commerce student Anusha. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. We're going to be asking you a few questions. So what do you consider yourself as, liberal, moderate, or conservative?
Well, I was raised in a conservative family, so I think I have a lot of those principles, but then I consider myself to be more liberal, so I guess I'm a mixture of the two.
Okay, sounds good. Do you think the way the media covers the presidential election is fair to both sides, or favors one side over the other?
I don't think it favors either side. It depends on where you get your sources from, depending on what media outlets you choose as in newspapers or in the news on TV. There's always that debate between like CNN and Fox and other news channels, so I think it depends where the person gets their source from.
Okay, very last question. We're doing a TV show next Monday where we're having news people and others talk about the idea of media being objective. What is one question you would ask the panel about the way the news is covered during a political race?
Well, I guess the truth of the matter is that most media isn't objective these days. About 90% is based on opinions of the authors that write it or present it to the society. So what's the solution for maybe the future to improve media to give those opinions, or to rather not give opinions but give the facts about the actual media instead of putting their opinions into it?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sal, do you have a reaction to what she was saying there?
Well, you know, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's very, very difficult to separate your opinion from the facts, even in a deeper way than what I said before, because at that level you can be aware of your biases and say, if I'm presenting something using a passive voice, then, you know, I'm putting the emphasis on this particular character. But there are biases that we're not aware of. And those, you know, it's extremely difficult, potentially impossible to countermand them, because by definition we are not aware of the fact that we have these biases. And it's where common sense comes into the picture. You know the famous expression, common sense is the most common matter because everybody has a lot of it, okay? But then, of course, you look at someone else and you say, well, no, that's not my common sense. And of course, common sense is where your biases are, okay? So it's very, very difficult to be objective about the biases that you're not aware of having.
Fred, anything based on what she said?
I think in today's society with television, with radio, and with the internet, because we have so many talk shows and talking heads, that our society has had the problem of trying to distinguish, or being able to distinguish, between fact and opinion. When we watch television and we see some of the talk shows who come across with their opinions and emphasize in a way that they try to convince us that it is fact, when they say things like, well, I know this and so-and-so did this. as compared to the newspapers tell you where their opinion is. It's on the opinion page. And so there's a little bit of difference there. But I think in our society where we have so many talk shows, we have so many talking heads, the internet is so rampant with opinions that our society has a difficulty distinguishing what is a fact and what is opinion. And sometimes they cross the lines and they think that the opinions are fact.
Let's see another clip here from folks here in Commerce, students at A&M Commerce, about the whole topic of journalism and objectivity.
All right. Do you consider yourself liberal, moderate, or conservative, or would you rather not say?
I'd probably say liberal.
Liberal.
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, then, do you think the way the media covers the presidential election, is it fair to both sides or favors one side over the other?
It's always going to favor one side over the other because probably one media cast might agree with one president candidate, the other one might agree with the other one. So it's always kind of like brainwash or who can do better at covering a piece.
Well, that's a fair assessment. So, which side do you think they favor more?
As I said, it all depends on the person and their personal beliefs, really. I think it's kind of even majority of the time.
Yeah, that's about right. So we're doing a TV show next Monday where we'll have news people and others talking about this idea of the media being objective. What one question would you want to ask about the way news is covered during a political race?
I would ask, when they are covering a political race, do they use their, personal beliefs when making, questions or when making assumptions, or do they actually go strictly off of what they actually say? Because a lot of times they brainwash and manipulate things into what they want them to say, so it'll make a better story, so people will watch it.
Well, that's good. Thank you for talking with us today.
Okay. Fred, what do you think?
Well, I think there are media outlets out there, and so many times when we talk about the media in today's society, it seems like we talk about it's more along the lines of broadcast. It's more along the lines of what we see on television, and so I think a lot of our public has the tendency to lump the media all under one umbrella, and it's based on what they see on television, or what they hear, what they read on the internet, and so forth. I think there are media outlets out there that are very favorable to a particular political agenda, and I think some of them have no qualms about admitting it. But at the same time, I think some of these same outlets who are very one-sided in some cases have a tendency to say, no, we're not, we're the ones who are fair. So there's a lot of name-calling and finger-pointing out there.
We're almost out of time. I'm going to take just one more moment, though, to ask Sal a question. We were talking during a break about the fact you're from Italy.
Yes.
Your point of view, looking at how the media operates in Italy versus what you see in the U.S.
Well, it's very different. It was very different 30 years ago when I left. Now it's become Americanized, to a very large extent. So it's much closer. 30 years ago, you really had a much broader set of points of view and opinions that were being aired. Now it's narrowing down significantly to the point that, as I said, it's come very, very close to the American system, where the points of view that are aired are very, very narrow, and there is a whole load of issues that never come, into the political debates, for example. The web, from this point of view, and what you were saying before is particularly correct, the web gives you access to loads of information that are not part of the political discourse today, but that you can look at. For example, think of an issue like fracking. Environmental issues, right? Nobody has brought these up, in the mainstream political discourse. This kind of issues, however, you can find about it on the web, and so that is something, but it requires initiative, it requires effort on the part of the people.
We're going to come back here after a break, and we're going to be talking with A&M Commerce students who are conducting research, and they are involved in looking into the whole issue of objectivity in journalism right after this.